Hello and good evening. Welcome to Unlocking Secrets of the Mind. And you see, as sessions go, they are peppered with a lot of disturbances, a lot of problems, but then finally we are here. And I'm so glad to have you all here. So this is Aashisha, your host for the evening, and like almost every week, we're going to do yet another session with writers, publishers, authors, in fact, dreamers, because we all believe in dreams. So I'm Aashisha and I write, and my passion project, The Mind Bin, this is all about healing and writing and being a part of a wonderful, like-minded, um, open community. So today we have a special guest, Shutapa Basu, and I'm sure you all know her. She was born in Bankura, West Bengal. She graduated from the Convent of Jews and Mary at Ambala. She completed graduation with honors in English literature from Bishop Bharati University, Shantiniketan, and postgrad from Bahuguna University, Uttarakhand. She also holds a teaching degree from Maharaja Sayaji Rao University, Vadodara. Shrutapa has worked with Oxford University Press, Encyclopedia Britannica, and Readermania. She lives in Delhi with her husband, an ex-army colonel. She's the author of Dangle and Padmavati, the editor of Chronicles of Urban Nomads, Crossed and Knotted, Rudraksh, and a contributor to Defined Dreams and When They Spoke. Shutapa won the first prize of the Times of India Right India campaign for Amish Tripathi, and her debut novel Dangle was nominated for the Anupam Kher Award for Best Debut English Novel. Her Padmavati is, well, the most important historical novel, and The Curse of Nala. Welcome to you, and apologies the horrendous things that happened on a Friday night.
I'm so glad to be here,
Am
Aashisha.
I audible? I think
You
we
are
just
going off,
lost
I
you.
think, the audio, and you are certainly off the movement. So I think you need to check your internet connection.
Okay, okay, did you?
I can
Because
hear
now
you.
I can hear you. Yeah, now
Yeah,
I can hear you. Okay, so we were able to hear the description, right?
yes, yes, we could hear the description. Thank you so much for it.
So what
Right,
went wrong?
from my birth, it was like quite a long time ago.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. All right, so what went wrong? Sorry, I couldn't get it. Did my video go off, or was there some?
Your video is off. It's still
Okay,
off.
now it's fine. It's still
Even
off.
now. Yeah, we can hear you, but
Is it fine now?
no, we can hear you, but the video is not on.
Okay, but I can see my video. Okay, that's weird. All right, but I can see my video anyway. All right.
Is it possible that you have got any other camera on? Because sometimes if you have another camera on, then this camera. I'm really looking forward to this discussion with Ashisha because she really has these very, very interesting shows on the Mind. Yeah, now your video is on, Ashisha.
Is it fine now? Goodness. Okay.
A
All
little
right.
louder, maybe.
All right. Is it fine now?
Yeah.
Yeah, great, great. So, well, let us just go ahead with the questions and I will not delay any further. So, tell us what started you on this journey and how did you come to writing? Because it does seem that you've always been a writer, but what gave you that initial push that made you into a writer?
So ever since I was a child, I've always been a voracious reader. So ever since I've been a child, it was always my dream that my name as a writer should come, should be printed on books, and people should read what I want to say, my stories, because I was always writing stories, even as a kid. So I always wanted that other people read my stories and enjoy them, and that could only happen if my I could publish my stories. But of course, though I was writing even as a child, even as a teenager, in college. um, and reading all the time. Books are my, what should I say, I'm a total bookaholic. So I used to constantly read. But it was, and to somehow, the choices I made in my life academically, for example, I picked up English literature to study, did my honors in English literature. And because again, it brought me very close to books, to writing, to writers. And then when I started teaching in schools, I it was English that I was teaching. So again, I was talking about writers to the students, and about literature. Finally, when I decided to change my career, again it was into publishing. So again it was books. So I have all the time been connected to books and writing. But this dream of mine, which kept on growing inside me, it was in 2014 that I decided that I have to write to publish. And it was not happening because I was so busy with my with the corporate career that I was on, and being in the senior executives, I found it very difficult to find time, find mind space, basically, to for ideas to come in. So in 2014, I just gave up my corporate job. And everybody in my home, all my friends, everybody said, "You're totally crazy to give up a high flying career just to write." And of course, uh, you know, me included, did not believe that my writing would be read or published. But still, I just thought that I need to take this chance. And once I did that, I started writing, but I was not sure whether I would get it published. And then came Write India. So since this contest happened, and that was the first season, I just thought, let me just try out to see whether anybody will accept even a short story. So it was the first author prompt, which was by Amish Tripathi, and I sent in my story, I submitted my story. And the prompts used to happen over a month. You had to submit over a month. And then about 2 to 3 months later, they announced the winners. Of course, I had absolutely no hopes, no expectations. And there were some 8,000 entries, I think, on that particular month. And when I heard that I had won, it was like Shuddhappa, and people were congratulating Shuddhappa, congratulations. I said, no, no, some other Shuddhappa must have won, not me. I couldn't possibly be winning. But when Right India sent me the
Meant to be.
notification, I was like over the moon, I could not believe it. But what happened is that it was the trigger. It told me that, okay, people are reading my stories and they're liking what they're reading. So possibly if I write a book, they will probably like it. And thankfully, it's very difficult to get a debut book published. I mean, Ashisha, you would know better than anybody else, it's very difficult. But
Absolutely. It
lucky
is.
that a publisher decided, accepted that they would publish me, and Readomania accepted my manuscript, and they said they would publish me. And that is how my publishing, my writing career, basically, my author career started with the first book, which was Dangle, uh, psychological thriller.
Amazing. And I still remember that day when you came to the college to, for a reading. And that
Hmm.
was a wonderful time. I find this amazing spirit in you, which is like this persistence, and you don't give up easily. You're like, I have decided and I'm going to do that. So I really, it's very admirable. And very few people have that. People are like, okay, fine, I've done this and it's enough. So how do you keep that spirit alive? And I think that spirit, it can be seen, in your recent book also.
Well, Ashisha, maybe I'm a person who gets bored very quickly. So I must do something new. So that is what I think, constantly pushes me, that. So you see, I'll give you a good example. Since my husband has had been in the army, and, I was moving with him, I didn't really have the opportunity of starting a career as such. So I decided to teach. And I think when I started, and once my son started going to school, I joined a school. And my age at that time was 25. I have no qualms about saying, giving you my age. So at 25, I started teaching. So my teaching career started at 25. When I decided that, I seem to be stagnating. I'm doing so much more in the school other than just teaching, putting up musicals, writing, and then getting children to act, and then putting up a 1.5 hour musical. I did Peter Pan, actually, on the stage, I realized that I am not doing anything new. So I decided to, there was a advertisement from the Oxford University Press, and I decided to, submit my resume with no idea about what is publishing. I had absolutely no idea. But somehow the director decided that yes, she will do, and I got into publishing. I started that as a career, and my age was 45. Now, after 25 years in publishing, when the corporate age for retirement came along, and now at 65, I have retired from my publishing career. But then I thought, why not start, completely writing and start coaching? So I have now started, while I was doing it, in bits and pieces when I was still, in the corporate career. But now I have started doing it full time, that I'm coaching creative writing courses and workshops in schools and so on. So I was just trying to tell you, every 20 years, I decided I must change my path.
It's incredible, and I genuinely like value this kind of spirit because it's very rare. It's very rare that one finds this kind of thirst for life and this kind of thirst for whatever you want to do, and it's beautiful. And I must acknowledge, and you must have seen all of us rooting for you at all points of times. It's beautiful that you started this, and the most important thing is you're so upfront about it's so proud of the things that you've done. It's amazing. And sometimes I feel that, hey, why did I get into this job? I'm not happy about it, or why did I do this? But then people like you are kind of there, right there as an inspiration. So, well, thank you for this. But now I want to talk about some of your books. So, as you know, Padmavati, I mean, as everybody knows, Padmavati did amazingly well, and you started on the streak of historical fictions. So, tell us about your favorite novel out of all these three. And I know it would be a difficult question, but I want to know the favorite novel, your favorite novel.
So, Ashisha, it's very difficult to pinpoint my favorite novel because basically I have writers. I mean, there are two genres which I have always been hooked to. One is, of course, thrillers, and the other one is historical fiction. And why historical fiction is, you see, literature, which is my passion, is very connected to history. Without history, you need to constantly know the history, which is the background of any literary work that is happening, whichever period it may be happening. So that is the reason history got into my blood. And I have also been very fond of the genre of historical novels or historical fiction. So when I started writing, it occurred to me that I should start in those genres which I know well because I have been reading them. So I started with the psychological thriller Dangle, but then my next love came across, and the next book that I did was Padmavati, and the Queen tells her own story. And I was very happy doing the research for it. Of course, it needs a lot of research, but it was fun doing the research and discovering things. And in fact, I went to Chittorgarh as well because
Yeah.
I felt I must go to the actual place where all this has taken place and see things for myself. So if you've read the book, I think you will know that
Yeah.
the entire story is taking place during a walk through the fort. So that walk is something that I could do so easily because I did it myself. So I realized that you have to experience it. Well, we can't go back in time and experience actually the period or the people, but if you go to the site where your story is set and you experience it, you can imagine, your imagination starts working then. And you will not believe it, Ashisha, when I went there and I saw the tunnel where apparently she had the Johar had taken place. It gave me an eerie feeling. I really felt something happening there. So and that, I think, those feelings have come into the book, which is why people they love Padmavati so much, because maybe my all my experiences, the kind of feelings, the emotions I felt when I went to Chittorgarh, they have somehow transmitted into the story of Padmavati.
I totally agree, and this is how I think a lot of people that's why prefer writing things that they've experienced because it's quite raw and quite real. So I think Mona is also mentioning she's remembering the Kala. armed episode. Okay. So she's mentioning all this. So tell us, what made you write this new novel, which is the history, of India, and right at the cusp of 75 years of Indian independence. And you've got the book right there. I can see it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful cover. So what made you write it? Because I know, of course, I can guess because you have your um, the teaching feeling as well. So I think it came out, and I think it launched on November 14th, Children's Day.
Yes,
So
yes.
that was quite a nice touch.
So, Ashisha, let me first give you a little bit of, my background as a child. So, I was an army brat, which means my father was an army officer. And fortunately or unfortunately, whatever, today I look back and say probably fortunately, I experienced both the wars, 1965 and 1971, very much live, because my father in 1965 was at Kemkaran sector, where the famous tank battle took place, and my mother, my brother, who's 3 years younger than me, I was about, I think, 7 or 8 years or 7 years old, I think I was in class 2 or 3, and my younger brother, we were all staying in a place called Ambala, the Ambala Cant, and Ambala Cant was bombed during the 1965 war. So we were spending many of the nights while the war was going on in trenches. So try to imagine two small children, and my mother must have been about 25 years old, very young, sitting in the trench. And this is somewhere in October, November. It's really cold in Ambala, which is, Haryana. And when you're sitting in a trench, which is dug out of mud, my mother says that she had lined it with newspapers, thinking that that will sort of take away the damp. And she says, as we were sitting there, and as the planes are screaming on the top, and she can hear the firing from the anti-aircraft guns, she could feel something rustling under the newspaper. And she said, "Oh my God, if it's a serpent or a scorpion, I don't know what I'm going to do." So this was the kind of scenario in which I have never forgotten. For me, it was traumatic on one hand, and something that is completely unforgettable. I think for a child of 7 years, it is something you cannot take out, you know.
Not at
But at
all.
that time, while this was going on, I knew my father was serving the nation. So a kind of, at that impressionable age, a kind of passion, a patriotism, a love for your nation started growing inside me. And it has always been there. But now that I have, I've been teaching children, so I have been interacting with a lot of children. Even when I'm publishing, I am my the vertical I was publishing it is educational publishing. So I have been interacting with a lot of children, a lot of teenagers, a lot of young children. What I realize is that children today are losing that sense of pride in their nation, and that made me think a little. And since I have been very familiar with the curriculum also, which is being taught in the school, there is one gap that is there in when we teach the history of India in our schools. And it's been there when we were children studying in schools, and it is still there in our history books. You see, the history of India is taught with all its history, empires, the periods, Mughal periods, and so on, till the independence. And then the struggle for independence is very much there. And then once India got independence, immediately the children, the students are taken to modern India. So there was a small part from 1947 to 1950. These years were the time when India was integrated. Now, today, even we who have been born in free India, when we think of India, we think of the map of India, right? Starting from Ladakh to Kanyakumari, from Kutch to Arunachal Pradesh. But that was not what the British handed over to the new Indian government in 1947. Now, I would tell everybody who is listening to just imagine the map of India, and I'll tell you exactly what the British gave. They gave to us the states of Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Odisha, West Bengal, Assam, which was a big state at that time, and it included Nagaland, Mizoram, Meghalaya, but no Sikkim, no Manipur, and no Tripura. All right. In the center, you had Madhya Pradesh and a little bit of Maharashtra. And in the south, you had Tamil Nadu and a little bit of Andhra Pradesh. That is all that was given to the new Indian government in 1947. How did it become the map that we know today? There were 565 princely states. And when the British left, those states which had an alliance with the British government became independent kingdoms. So they had a choice. They could join India, they could join Pakistan, and they could remain independent. So our leaders had to really work very hard to convince these rulers that they should join India. So what was that entire, hard work?
Sorry.
Who are the people who did it? What did the rulers give up? The rulers sacrificed their inheritance to join India. The people of the states, they wanted to join India. There was a plebiscite in many of the states where they voted for India. These are the stories which our children don't know, nor do we. In fact, when I was researching, I got to know so many things which I did not know. So the birth of a nation talks about the story of integration of India, and then it talks about the history of each one of the 28 states and 8 union territories that we have today. So it starts with the prehistoric period to modern India. So that is what the entire book is. And not just that, if you see you can see the picture over here. There's a woman who's telling the story to children. So the whole book is a conversation between this lady and the children. And the children are asking her questions because a lot of questions come up in the minds of the children. Very simple one is they ask that one of the children asks, why are you adding AD and why are you adding BC and BCE? So what is the whole point? Why are you adding that CE and BCE? So she explains why those have to be added and how it helps us to understand history in a
I
very
think that's
simple, childlike manner so that children understand it.
I think
So
that's so
these
amazing.
are the reasons why I started writing. One is that there is this gap which I wanted to fill. The other thing was today's young people are constantly looking at the Western countries for inspiration. But unless you know your own roots, will you really be able to progress? You need to know where you come from before you go out into the world. Of course, the world is in their grasp today. You can be a global citizen. But shouldn't you know where you started from? Once they know that, once they know the effort, the struggle that has gone into making the country that they take so much for granted today, I think then they will the pride that needs to be there in their hearts when they go out. They should be happy that they are Indian and proud of their Indianness and take that into the world. That is what
Absolutely.
my purpose was when I wrote this book.
Touche, touche. I think that takes the cake. You're right. There's a huge gap where people, where children, once upon a time, people used to talk about drain, drain. People are leaving. I think it's become a norm now. People are leaving the country because they don't find their roots. This is one of those books which will help build the roots. So I'm so glad you wrote this, you know, for the future generations, and I can vouch for the kind of writing style and everything. So this is going to be a wonderful read. So again, it's been amazing because it's timed very well. It's just when India has finished the 75 years of independence, and uh, there is this wonderful book that has come up. So I'm sure our young readers will definitely look forward to it.
I hope so.
Yes, yes. So, because we talked a lot about publishing and writing, let me do a little rapid fire before we, run out of time. So, I want to know, so you have to just answer very quickly. No, no thinking, just answer very quickly. So, if you had a chance again, and apart from being a writer, if what else would you want to be?
A traveler. I love
Oh, wow.
traveling. I love going to all these places I've read about. So, yes,
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So did you ever think of going away from English literature, like studying history, being a historian?
well, when I decided to start, my college, I had this choice of either a history or literature, and I did my graduation from Shantiniketan, and I had given the entrance exam for both the departments, and I cleared them both. But then I chose literature.
It was literature because I had an upper hand, of course. All right. Okay, so simple things. Your inspiration.
My inspiration is reading, always has been. One. Second is life. When I look at life, I look what is happening, I look at nature around me. It's like it really inspires me.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, who's your role model? I know that's a difficult question because you might have quite many and you've become one, too many. But yes, who's your role
Yes,
model?
there are many, but my role model has always been my grandmother. She is no longer living. But what you were talking about me of having, being so multifaceted. My grandmother was really multifaceted, and she did not grow up in a world which gave her a lot of opportunities, but she took those opportunities. She used to paint. She read, but she used to read in Bangla before she was married. After she got married, my grandfather had a huge attic library full of books, and they were all in English. So she loved books. Now, how will she read in English? Because she only knows Bangla. So what she did is she took the Oxford Dictionary, she opened the Oxford Dictionary on one side and
My God.
the books on the other side. And let me tell you, those books were books by Tolstoy, Chekhov, classics, Charles Dickens, and Hemingway. And she read the books through the dictionary. So I have profound admiration for her. She
Hats
was an
off.
excellent cook. She used to, make sweetmeats, the Bengali sweets at home.
Wow.
So, and
Wow.
so many more things. She used to play the flute. So, I have always, she's been my role model all my life.
I think, why wouldn't she be? I mean, the kind of things that you're saying about her kind of take her on top of that level, and that's what makes me feel that our history is very important for our generations to know, to keep that pride alive. So that's very pertinent. Thank you. If you had to choose between, well, a beach holiday or a mountain holiday, which would you go for?
Beach, beach, I love the sea.
Is it? Okay, okay. Right. Your favorite food items?
Um, Usually, I would love, mutton and rice, the typical Bengali dish.
Hasha mangsho. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I love that.
Okay. Cool. Cool. So, well, we're done with the rapid fire. Now, any works which are in the pipeline, would you like to talk about them? I mean, of course, I know about some, but anything which you would like to disclose?
Actually, Ashisha, I am always writing. So there is always something in the pipeline. But I have a tiny superstition. I usually don't talk about my work in progress unless it has already been accepted by the publisher. But what I
Okay.
can say is that while I have been writing mostly in the historical fiction genre and the thriller, and now I have stepped into children's fiction, but I have always wanted to write in different genres. So now for example, The Birth of My Nation is a non-fiction book. So that is a
Non-fiction, yes.
though it's children's literature. I mean, children's books, but it is a non-fiction book. While if you remember, the book before this was Princesses, Monsters, and Magical Creatures, which was a translation. So
Yes.
what I like to do is write in different genres, and I want to try my hand out at every genre because you see, every genre has its own, kind of a, I won't use the word restriction, but its own potential and its own style. So I want to try out those styles so that as a writer, I am able to hone my craft. So that is
That
one
makes a
of the
lot of sense.
things that I want to do
So
everything
I can
that
say, in fact, the way that you stepped 20 years and different careers, I can completely see you jumping genres every month. So that's okay. All right. So, any last advice for our audience?
I don't know. I mean, am I the right person to advise the audience? I don't know.
Sure, sure. Any tips, any learnings which you had from all of your publishing journey? Because you've had a long journey and you've persisted a lot, you've learned a lot, and I've seen you at it. So,
Yes.
anything which you would tell aspiring writers?
Yes, I certainly have learned a lot, and some of the learnings I can, speak about. One thing that I've learned is that writing is not a hobby; it's serious business. And if the writer or the author does not take it seriously, then nobody else will take the writing seriously either. So one thing first is that you have to be very serious about your writing, and don't consider it a pastime. It's not a pastime, because there's a lot of effort that goes into it, and you should write in such a way that other people, when they read it, they see that effort, and they acknowledge it. So that is one thing that I have learned. Another thing is that this is from the publishing seat, because I've been on both sides of the table. So when you submit a manuscript, please make sure that your manuscript is um, has been rewritten a number of times, so that it's completely satisfies you. you know you should be absolutely satisfied that what I am submitting to the publisher is complete in all its sense. Because often, sometimes manuscripts do come onto the publisher's table, where you'll feel that the writer feels that editing this manuscript is not my job. But that's not. You need to edit, you need to redraft your manuscript so that it is the best that you can produce, and then you must submit it to a publisher. Otherwise, you see, on a publisher's table there's a pile of manuscripts. If the publisher comes to a manuscript where there are so many hiccups when he or she is reading it, he will put it aside. So
Agreed.
that is another learning that I think is important for people who are writing. They need to know. The other thing is discipline. um, I try my best to write every day, even if it's like 5 lines, but I write every day. So I think that is important, that you should make sure that you are writing every day, and only then the whatever you're writing will progress. Otherwise, if you keep thinking that today is not the right day, or this is not the right time, or this is not the right place, then you will never end up writing. So it's better to sit down and write rather than keep thinking about writing.
I totally agree. That I totally agree with. And I think those are some very, very good tips for new writers. And I would definitely like to also take them up, especially the part that writing is not a hobby. It is a full time job and it requires a lot more than most professions. So that is something we should all remember. So thank you so much again for being a part of this session, despite a lot of glitches, despite a lot of things
We did it.
happening.
We did it at the end.
We finally did it. That's what matters. And yes, this will be there for everybody to see. And well, take care, all of you. If you haven't yet picked up either Shutapa's new book, The History of India, uh, you want to show that?
This is
Yeah,
good.
this is the book. Right.
That's
So,
it.
The Birth of My Nation. If you've not yet picked this book up, do pick it up. And if you've not picked up Misadventures of a Sales Girl yet, do that. I'm sorry, I don't have my book with me. So, see, well, check us all out and stay tuned. We might be coming up with more stuff very, very soon. And all the best. Happy New Year. Xmas is also coming. So, all the best. Merry Christmas. Bye.
Thank you, Ashisha. Thank you, the Mind Bin, and thank you, everybody out there. A very, very Merry Christmas to you and a Happy New Year. Thank you so
Love.
much.
Bye.